Hi, everyone. Welcome to GoLocal Live. I'm GoLocal News editor Kate Nagel. Thanks for tuning in this Tuesday afternoon for news and politics. I'd like to thank GoLocal regular Jennifer Lawless down at the University of Virginia for Skyping in. Jennifer, how are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
We're doing just dandy up here. Glad we can pick your brain about D.C. politics as always. Let's start with what is moving through Congress and their role in either approving or disapproving of President Donald Trump's declaration of a national emergency. So House taking action first, then moving to the Senate. All eyes on the Senate and the Republican side.
Right. So the House already said that they don't think that this is a constitutional move and they oppose it. The question is whether the senators are going to cling to their partisanship or whether they're going to be more worried about what could happen when a Democrat occupies the White House. Mitch McConnell, for example, just today said that he's not really sure that it's a constitutional move and he's not really sure that he can support it. And this is obviously because there are Republicans who are very worried that if Bernie Sanders or Joe Biden or Kamala Harris is the next person in the Oval Office, they could be facing a precedent where national emergencies are declared over issues like climate change or gun violence. And that's certainly not something that they would want. So generally speaking, we often see the political parties tie their own hands to prevent and havoc from being wrought in the future. But everything is sort of an open question with Donald Trump, and it's unclear what he would do and how he would try to punish people that voted against this declaration.
So with it now in the Senate, and if they get enough Republicans to, again, oppose the President Trump on this, what then of his declaration and his grasp, again, trying to get more funding for his wall?
Well, it's a little bit unclear what happens at that point because the emergency declaration is a way for him to use funds from other pockets to provide money for the wall. It's unclear how much access he has to that money if he doesn't issue a national emergency. And some of that money might actually be open to him. It also creates an incentive for him to work more closely with Republicans and Democrats to put together a deal that might make everybody happy. That said, you know, he has demonstrated that when it comes to this issue anyway, he's probably the worst deal maker anybody has ever seen in Washington. And so it doesn't really seem like the Democrats have much of an incentive to provide anything. So I think it's really a crapshoot. He's anticipating, that the courts will weigh in on this. I'm not sure that he's anticipating that the Senate and the House would both vote no.
Do we have any a sense on time frame in the Senate, Jennifer?
We don't. I mean, if I were going to guess, I would assume that Mitch McConnell does not really want to have this vote anytime soon. But getting it out of the way is like ripping off a Band-Aid. So, it might also be a way to take some of the attention away from Michael Cohen's testimony and the Mueller investigation more broadly. So, I think there are pros and cons for doing it quickly and for delaying.
And let's talk a little bit about Michael Cohen's testimony in Congress. The news today, Michael Cohen disbarred in the state of New York.
I think that's appropriate. When we think about lawyers that have been disbarred for lying under oath, Bill Clinton is at the top of that list. And so, he lied not really about national secrets or campaign finance reform violations. He just lied about an affair. And he was president when he did it. So, I don't think that this disbarment is anything that's too surprising. The open question is what we're going to find out tomorrow when Cohen testifies before Congress.
And let's talk a little bit about that. It appears that the White House, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, already in spin mode trying to discredit, of course, anything Michael Cohen has to say. So do we take what Michael Cohen says at face value if he's been found to have lied under oath?
I don't think we take it at face value. I think we take it with a grain of salt. And there are a couple of things to keep in mind. The first is that Mueller and his team found a lot of what Cohen said credible, and they came to that determination because they were able to corroborate his stories and his statements with testimony from other witnesses as well as actual tapes and other audio evidence. So we know that the Mueller team determined that Cohen was telling the truth about quite a bit of these questions and the material that he's going to be covering. Second, Cohen's going to jail. He has nothing to lose at this point. He only has to gain by cooperating. If he is seen as helping the House, if he's seen as helping the Intelligence Committee, if he's seen as remaining a credible, important witness to the Mueller investigation, the judge can continue to knock time off that sentence. And everything suggests that that's what he wants. But he also knows that everything he says is going to be assessed really, really closely and scrutinized under a microscope. So if he lies, any deal is off. He really has no incentive to lie. He has every incentive to tell the truth.
Let's talk a little bit about that. There's some speculation that he might have some sort of bombshell on the president, if you will. You know, if Cohen goes before Congress and sort of delivers something jaw-dropping, I mean, how much of that actually then, in fact, has to be parsed?
That's not going to happen. I've been thinking about it. This is not going to be a scene out of the movies like Legally Blonde when you wind up getting Reese Witherspoon's character, you know, to get the person on the witness stand to admit that she was the murderer. That's not happening.
There's no bombshell? There's no Michael Cohen bombshell?
I don't think so. I think that generally speaking, everything that we hear, we're going to know. The new pieces of information we might find out are why he felt like he had to lie, and specifically whether anybody ordered him to lie or whether he sort of just picked up on that. But I think anything beyond that, especially if it's very important to the investigation, will be topics that are out of bounds or that he's not able to speak to because that's part of the deal that he's arranged with the Mueller team.
Okay, well, all eyes will be on Congress and Michael Cohen does testify. Let's go a little more international. Of course, President Donald Trump meeting with Kim Jong-un. As folks who watch GoLocal Live know, we had the opportunity to catch up last week with Professor Dr. Terrence Rohrig at the Naval War College, a real expert on the Korean Peninsula. He laid out a couple of things to watch while these two meet, including the definition of denuclearization and if there is, in fact, a finite time frame agreed to. What's the expectation coming out of this current summit?
Well, based on early reports, all of which have been anonymous, it seems that it's already a deal that the U.S. has lost. The early intelligence or the early gossip coming out of the summit is that the United States is probably going to agree to lift a fair number of sanctions, and Kim Jong-un is going to agree to shut down at least one nuclear facility. That's a lot different than agreeing to denuclearize. Trump needs a win here, though, and so I wouldn't be surprised if whatever the deal is, it's framed as something that only he was able to negotiate, and it's part of the reason that there hasn't been nuclear war up until this point.
Is there sort of a level, a litmus test, if you will? There's, of course, all this speculation with Trump and eyeing a Nobel Peace Prize. Is there really any potential for that here in what we're seeing between the U.S. and North Korea?
I'm willing to go on the record and say that there is no set of circumstances under which Donald Trump wins a Nobel Peace Prize. It's not happening. And part of the reason it's not happening is because even if he's able to make nice with North Korea, and even if he's able to ward off that threat, and it's unclear that he is able to or that that deal would materialize, almost the entire rest of the world is offended by or put off by the United States' current foreign policy. And so, I think when you think about a Nobel Peace Prize, there's sort of a more holistic set of criteria involved.
Well, we're going to be continuing to keep an eye on D.C. international, of course, local politics, and we'll catch up with you next week when there'll be a whole other set of topics, I'm sure, to discuss. So, Jennifer Lawless, thank you for taking the time to Skype in.
Of course.
Okay, we'll let Jennifer Lawless go down at the University of Virginia. We're going to get a lot more local here with Robin Garceau. So be right back here on GoLocal Live. Hi everyone, welcome back to Go Local Live. I'm Go Local News Editor Kate Nagel. I'd like to welcome my next guest in, a familiar face with some current topics to talk about. Robin Garceau with Robin Garceau Interiors. Thank you for coming in today.
You're welcome.
Well, we usually talk about the latest in design, but we're going to talk a little politics, which we usually do here in Go Local, because in the governor's proposed budget for 2020, there's some proposed additions to services that could be taxed. And one of them, a line item, was interior design.
Yes.
So we talked about this yesterday. You're quoted today in Go Local's piece. The governor, over the weekend in the Wall Street Journal, was called a nickel and dime Democrat by their editorial board. So let's talk a little bit about what this would mean for you, your business, and the industry.
Well, as you can imagine, as soon as I heard that, I was pretty upset about this. I mean, she singled out on one line interior design services. And it hit me in a way that I was so concerned, because I said, why is she singling out certain services? Why wouldn't it be services across the board? And, you know, I'm thinking to myself, maybe she was watching HGTV one night and it was an epiphany on her part and said, oh, you know, I can tax that service. And then it started to hit me. I'm wondering if she did it because we don't have a big voice. We don't have a big lobby. We are small businesses. We're interior designers. We are, which surprised me though, because we are primarily a female-driven industry. So she's going after an industry that's a female-driven industry. So it was pretty upsetting when I heard it.
And how much would this, do you think, have an impact on you and your bottom line? You know, one of the facets of today's piece is we talked with someone in the extermination business, because when it is passed to the business oftentimes you can't absorb that. Will it get passed on to the consumer?
Yes and no. I have to say, most of the time we already absorb fees for credit card use. Most people pay with credit cards. So I'm already absorbing those fees. You already take that hit, because I feel as though I'm not going to charge extra for a credit card, obviously. So when you're charging an interior design fee, now if I have to add 7% sales tax on it, I feel as though I'm getting hit twice, because now I don't want to have to charge that fee to my client. It will also have a direct effect on me in competing with designers from Massachusetts and Connecticut. And how do I charge that? I have a job in Rentham right now that I work on. Do I charge her 7% sales tax and maybe not somebody in Rhode Island? I'm not sure this was well thought out when they decided to throw that line item in there.
And so you've had discussions with folks in the industry this week up at the Assembly. They are considering a number of items within Article 5 in the budget. Do you anticipate a fight?
Yes. Absolutely. And if she feels as though we're not well represented, I feel like, you know what, maybe she's not thinking too hard about how we are going to fight this. We are strong women, and we are a strong industry, and we have strong people behind us. So don't underestimate us at all. There is one designer, Kelly Taylor. She's going to be speaking tonight at the Senate Finance Committee. On Thursday, there's another designer that's going to be speaking on the House side. So we are looking into this. We're looking at all our options, and we are going to fight it vehemently.
Well, we'll continue to keep tabs on the fight, report on the fight, as we've already done here at Go Local. You can read that piece today. But as we usually do when we bring you in to talk about the latest in design trends, speaking of design trends, you just came back from the show in Paris. What were the takeaways?
The takeaways in Paris, you know, it's funny because there are a lot of takeaways about Paris. Obviously, it's one of the most beautiful cities in the world. There's a lot to be seen. Designers from all over the world embark on Paris in January to see the trends and everything. So I did take away the technology that's being infused into the techniques that are used to make product. So fabrics are having more depth, and trims are, there's more depth in trims, and there's the embroideries and laser cut and things like that. So those are coming down the line. They're usually coming out in April for Europe, but we won't see them in the United States until the fall. So,
so let's talk a little bit about that. You say the technology involved. I mean, are people going to literally be able to see things, as you said, trim or designs that they even like haven't seen before? Were there things that sort of like made you maybe do a double take to be like, wow, I can't believe they were able to do this, and it's by lieu of the new technology that they were able to do so?
Oh, absolutely, because you see fabrics and you see the trims that have this depth that you've never seen before. You've seen interwoven designs that are so multifaceted and multicolor that it creates this whole new look for you. And it is becoming like artwork. You see three-dimensional wall coverings that you could do a wall with, and it literally looks like artwork. So it's really amazing.
Have you seen anything like this before?
Some, but not to this degree. Not to this extent where it is creating so much depth and design, yeah.
Do you think people will embrace this sort of new look, as folks have known what the traditional wall coverings have looked like for so long? Do you think it'll really be sort of a stylistic, a personal basis of, I like the traditional, or wow, I really want to embrace what this whole new look looks like?
You know, with technology in all facets of life, everything is becoming three-dimensional. Everything is becoming moving parts. And yes, I absolutely see it being embraced because people want to have some type of depth like that in their home. It's not just a flat two-dimensional thing anymore. It really is three-dimensional.
And do you really have to sort of maybe even see it in person? We've always talked about, you know, when you're working with a designer, what you see in a catalog versus the ability to sort of see, feel, and touch and know what that's going to look like in a home.
These fabrics and trims and designs, you really want to see and feel, and it's easy to do that because of sampling. Because you have to grasp what you're actually seeing. It truly is three-dimensional, and I do take photographs, and I try to take up-close photographs, but there's really nothing like that. So it's nice to see. Another thing that I saw a lot of was a new, well, not a new genre, a genre that keeps popping up, which is Art Nouveau. And it's coming everywhere. So that's one of my favorite genres. So I'm very happy to see that.
So what are some of the facets of Art Nouveau that, you know, of the viewers watching right now? I mean, what's in that trend that we'll be seeing?
Well, Art Nouveau it comes from the Art Deco phase of 1920s. You know, it's so funny because before I left for Paris, I bought a dress with some fringe on the bottom, and I said, oh my God, that's going to be the next trend. And you do start seeing all the fringes on furniture and things like that. But also designs in fabrics that have that Art Nouveau patterns that almost look like buildings and geometrics and florals and things that were done in the 20s that are just absolutely gorgeous. I just did a fireplace that had an Art Nouveau feel to it, which I'm excited because now you see the trend coming forward. So I'm really definitely designing forward.
Excellent. I'd love to hear about the takeaways. I've seen all the photos from when you were in Paris. We've got you here for a little while. You were just on the road again, but you'll be heading down to North Carolina shortly for High Point.
High Point will be next. That's the beginning of April. That's one of the world's largest home furnishings show. High Point doesn't really look like Paris, and it doesn't have the feel of Paris, but it is good, and it is there's so many artists and so many industry people that come to that show that it's fabulous. It's just a whole town of furnishings. So that's going to be really, really interesting. I'll come back with a lot in there too.
Come back with what's from High Point. Well, I'm glad you were able to come share with us a little bit about the trends from Paris. Again, as you said, you'll see them in Europe in the spring, see them here in the U.S. in the fall. And you heard it here first on Go Local Live. So Robin Garceau, thank you so much for coming in
You're
to
welcome.
talk politics and design. That just about wraps up another day here in downtown with Go Local Live. Of course, turn in tomorrow afternoon for Laura Afonso with Food and Drink on Live. But of course, go to golocalprov.com and find us on Facebook. In the meantime, we'll see you back here tomorrow in downtown Providence. I'm Go Local News editor Kate Nagel.